Hey, Jeff, what can you tell us about your motorcycle?
Well, this is a 2010 Triumph. It's called a T100. It's a black edition. Everything's black. Most of them, like the cases, are all be kind of polished chrome, but this is the black edition. When I got it, it had aftermarket pipes, and they were just too noisy. So I found these pipes, the original ones, on eBay. Put them on. It was real easy, and I got a rack so I could put stuff on the back. And it had little mirrors out here that were tiny and kind of useless. So I got these. They were supposed to fit perfectly and they didn't. So I had to have little extensions welded on them. It's got 18,000 miles on it. The gas tank holds 3.8 gallons. It's 900 cc's. It's got 64 horsepower and 54 pounds of torque. It weighs about 500 pounds, although it doesn't feel like a 500-pound motorcycle to me. It's oil cooled. There's a radiator here. And it's fuel injected, but it's kind of got this retro look to it. And even though this looks like a carburetor from the original Triumphs from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's made to look like a carburetor, but it's actually fuel injected. And it's one of the smoothest motorcycles I've ever ridden, and I've ridden a lot of motorcycles. But this thing is so smooth and it handles so well. You got to give Triumph credit. Well, they've been making motorcycles probably as long as Harley Davidson has. I think I'm the third owner. And it's kind of interesting how I got this bike. Years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, I was down at a coffee shop in Prescott, and there was a guy sitting there, and he and I started talking. I guess it was in the wintertime. And he said, well, I come out here every winter and stay for 3 or 4 months, and then I go back to Ithaca, New York, where I'm from. And then in the summer, I come out here for a couple of weeks, but I ride my motorcycles. And I said, oh, I'm a motorcyclist. He said, well, yeah, I've got 17 motorcycles, and I live in Ithaca, New York, and I ride my bikes about 30,000 miles every year. And so we started talking. Anyway, we became very, very close friends. His name was Al Gantert. And Al was at Cornell University for 41 years. He was the director of athletics. He did 100 triathlons. He taught handgun, skeet, yoga. I mean, he was just an amazing man and probably one of the smartest people I've ever known. And being at Cornell, he knew Carl Sagan. He knew all these very important intellectuals, and he was a very conservative guy. And in spite of that, he lasted 41 years at Cornell, which is not a conservative place. Anyway, Al, as I said, would drive his motorcycle every year out to Prescott because his son lived here. His son went to Prescott College and then settled here, so he'd come visit his son. And he just loved motorcycling. I mean, he loved motorcycling more than anyone I'd ever known, and he was probably one of the best riders that I've ever known. And he was my best friend. One summer, I shipped my bike back to Ithaca, and then I flew there, and I drove out west. I drove back to Prescott with him. It was kind of a bucket list thing. I always wanted to drive across the country, and it was quite a trip. When I got to Ithaca, it was 75 degrees and wonderful. The next day, it was 85 degrees. And the next day, it was 95 degrees with humidity of like 90%. We left on that day, and that temperature didn't change until we hit the Rocky Mountains. And so it was quite an ordeal. And but other trips, I would meet Al on his way out. I'd meet him in Colorado Springs, or I'd meet him different places, and we just had wonderful trips. And then I would go and meet him, and since he had so many in Ithaca, and since he had so many bikes, I would just pick whatever bike I wanted, and we'd go up to Lake Placid, and we'd go over to New Hampshire, and we had these wonderful rides that I'll never forget. Just incredible times with him. Anyway, last August, he was coming into Norton, and a city truck, a big semi, turned in front of him, and he couldn't stop, and he was killed. And it was devastating because he had so many friends here in Prescott that just loved him. And it really hit us all real hard, especially me. In the wintertime, when he would come out here, he would drive his truck, but he loved motorcycles so much that he ended up buying 2 motorcycles that he kept here. One was this one, the Triumph, and one was a little 250 Kawasaki trail bike, or dual purpose bike. And his sons actually knew that I love motorcycles and I'd done so much with Al. They gave me this bike. Now, I didn't really want it, if you want to know the truth, because of the memories associated with it. It was very sad. And but I started riding it, and I had a BMW GS that I'd gone across to Colorado, a lot of big trips with. And I was so kind of freaked out that I sold it. So I didn't really have a bike that I could go any place with. And then I started riding it, and I just really grew to love this bike. I'm a jazz pianist, and I have another friend who's a jazz pianist, and he bought one of these, and he's been experimenting with all these different windshields. This is one of the windshields that he bought for his Triumph that he didn't like. So he gave it to me, so I put this on, and it's pretty, it looks kind of cool, but it really doesn't do much. But I think for a long trip or something, I have to get a bigger windshield. It's a comfortable bike, and it's reliable, and it's a great memory maker. And I owe it all to Al.